Today we're going to talk about screw removal. Bussedamove is a rear-engine Thomas-built bus. It is a 2002 Saf-T-Liner. So we have the good fortune of having screws all over. Every piece of sheet metal in here was a Phillips head screw. We've seen a lot of people complain about Skoolies in the Skoolie groups, and it's buses that have rivets in the bus all over the sheet metal, and people have a really hard time with rivets. And I mean, honestly, there were a few in here, and there were just enough in here where I was like, man, I'm super glad that we have screws. But 17-year-old screws that have been in there for, the lifetime of the bus, they have a little rust on them, and they were a little stubborn, and they had a little bit of a hard time coming out on occasion. And it wasn't bad. I don't know, I didn't fully count, but there was like 90 or something per run across the top. And, they would do okay. We would have this guy, it's an impact driver, big 1/2-inch stud there. And with the impact bits, we had the Phillips head. This is a flat head, but I'm getting there. When they would strip out, and more than a fair share of them did strip out, I handled it like a lot of people said they handle it. And I had the angle grinder, and I would just grind. And there's a bug flying through here, that's fun. If you see that, don't worry about it, it's fine. But we go through with the Phillips head bit on the drill, and we would get almost all of them out. And there were a few that got stuck, and when they get stuck, they get stripped out, and nobody likes that. So I ground a few of them off, and it was just taking forever. And I was like, let's see what they're complaining about. I did about 3 screws like that had stripped out. I took the grinder and zipped them off, and then figured out a way around that, and it was just taking forever. It had taken probably half an hour to take one panel out, and I was like, man, I'm gonna burn the day. I'm gonna burn the whole day doing this, and so there's gotta be a better way, and usually if you go so far to think there's a better way, then there probably is. So you'll hear us talk about the 4.5-inch angle grinder quite a bit, because man, this thing is awesome. But in this particular one, we have the cutoff wheel, and I was like, man, I bet if we got another drill and put a flathead bit in it, we could take the grinder, zip a little a line across there. You can't cut too deep or the head would fall off, but if you cut a little line in it, we can go up with the flathead and it would zip right out like it was meant to. All right, so we have a lot of screws that were stripped with the Phillips head bit, and we ground a few of them all the way down and then tried to pull it off, and then we thought there might be a better way, and there usually is. So we got the same cutoff wheel, and we're just making a slot right in the middle of the thing in the head, and then we're taking a flathead bit on our drill, and they're coming right out. It's kind of awesome. Just like that.
And show me how they come out with that flat bit. You got, let's see.
Can you see that? Now go right up in there.
And then how about that?
Just like that. It's good stuff. Do one more. Perfect. That sped up the entire night by an untold amount of hours. We were having a hard time until we happened upon this little trick. So if you gotta remove screws in your bus, 100% that's the way I would do it. Because that's the way I did do it. Another cool trick we learned taking the screws out is you can actually tap them with a hammer, and that'll break the rust loose. A lot of years of rust got right behind these screws, and we were stripping out the screws left and right as much as we were trying, and we were stripping them out. So what we did is went through with a hammer and started tapping the heads of all of them, and it was breaking the rust loose. And our percentage of screws that stripped went significantly down. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I'm wearing ear protection because it's a pretty terrible sound when your ear is right next to that. And I make a living using my ears, so I'm trying to save them. Don't want to blow out the eardrums building a bus. Right out. You still lose some. It's super easy. Like if you just think about it, the screw is locked in there with the rust. And so take the hammer, just give it a little tap. You don't have to do anything crazy. Don't go nuts with it, but just give it a little tap and it should do its part. The mechanics of hitting it should break some of the rust loose. And we ultimately started doing that first. We go through with a hammer, tap, 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 all the way across. And from there, we would go through with the Phillips head and try to get them out. Then we'd get out as many as we could. And from there, we would just take note of where they were, and we'd go back with the angle grinder, zip a line. And then from there, we would take the flathead and it'd come right out. And it wound up being a really cool process. And I think from start to finish, if I remember right, from start to finish, we did the whole ceiling disassembly in about 3 hours.
The slot, and there she goes. Stripped no more.
And that's how to get a strip screw out of this.
Absolutely.
Grind that flat slot in.
And back
Get
it
your drill
on.
back on it.
Well, the angles are tough.
Some got to play with more than others, but they can.
It works out.
But a lot of the groups, the social media groups that we're in for Skoolies, a lot of people are saying, man, it took a week to do my roof, or it took a week to get all the screws out of the inside of my bus. And our bus is actually 250 miles away from where I currently live, and it's on the old family farm I grew up on. So time is precious. Our time working on the bus is absolutely precious. So I could not afford the time to come down and waste a whole lot of time on getting all the panels removed. And we had to remove all the panels because we're trying to pull out all the old insulation. And if you're on the fence about whether or not you should do that, you absolutely should do that. We found a lot of awful things under ours. I mean, not a lot, it wasn't terrible, but it was enough where it was unsettling for us. And anytime we ever do this in the future, if we ever build another one, it's just a must. It's a must do for us, is to take all the panels off, because you just never know what's back there until you look. And it's really not worth all the money that people put into these without knowing what's back there. And so we did it, and I'm proud of us for doing that, because it wouldn't have worked long term if all that stuff was back there. Not to mention, we're going to go back with better insulation. So I would be curious how long it took a lot of you to do yours, and if you're doing it for the first time, go do it and try it however way you want. Try it my way and see which one's better. I would be very curious if you'd just write some comments in there. Let me know what you think and how you did on your projects. If this is helping you at all, we would love it if you'd help us back by liking the video. It helps out the YouTube algorithm, and it'll help us get more shares and more likes and more people like you watching. So we're super excited about you doing that. So all these videos are just lessons learned. Some learned the hard way, some learned pretty quickly. Either way, there's something that can be passed on to help, so we're happy to do that. And I'm excited that if you've made it this far, congratulations and thank you. And if you haven't liked yet, do that. And if you haven't commented yet, do that too. And we'd love to know who you are and where you are. And have a good one.